Alright, welcome to the third map guide. This time, we're taking a closer look at Northern Waters. This is a map I hate. And the main reason is there's basically nowhere to push. And I'll show you kind of why throughout this video. But like normal, we're going to start with important positions for radar cruisers to get to or to position themselves at. And there's a few of them. So looking at the map here, you can see, well, this is not really realistic early game, but if you can get a radar cruiser in here, you're controlling all of ACAP, and it's very, 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 very strong. And that's why a lot of the strategy to this map is denying the entrance of cruisers down this line. So you want to set up with a battleship, here or out here even to, prevent this guy from coming in. And then you're going to look for cross shots from the other battleship, along these lines. So it is definitely possible to do. In the Kings of the Sea tournament, I dev struck a Minotaur. I was about here in my Montana, and I shot all the way here and dev struck a Minotaur that was going there. It's possible. Hard shots to hit, but it certainly is a very strong island, and you have to be aware of that in random battles or in whatever you're doing. If the enemy team allows you to get to this island, very strong. Because just look at the radar you get on this. Okay, it's not working. But your radar would be about like this. Oh right, because this map isn't actually in the map pool, so I had to find an image of it, so it doesn't actually know the distance. Fair enough. But your radar, trust me, would cover a lot of this. Good positions for early radars are here and here. You'll have to trust me on this, but they will reach. They will reach that whole cap, and in fact, you can sometimes even put a shorter range radar in these ones and free up your longer range radar for other caps. But you see big islands, blocking a lot of shots across the map here. It seems to slope down here, but no, these islands are actually very tall here and here. And on the other side, it's actually slightly weaker, a little worse. So you're going to have to be a little bit careful of that on this side because there is a lot less island cover here. I don't know why they make these islands so much different from side to side. It makes the northern spawn a lot worse on this side, at least for this radar cruiser. And this island here, you can see, provides decent amounts of cover, but your goal is really to get onto this side. Your goal is to your entire team to push out anybody here or anybody over here so that your radar cruiser can be on this side of the rock, because you can see it's just so much bigger. You got to watch out if you back out here. Cross shots can come through this little gap, and that's in fact where that Minotaur got dev struck like that. From the south, it's actually better because you get this bigger rock. So at least on the A cap, I would say it's south favored for sure. Radar is not particularly useful from these islands, but you can get a good HE spamming cruiser behind these islands. Maybe something with high DPM, lots of range, but not as tanky. You can put behind these islands, and you can get some really good shots in if the enemy team tries to push here. Definitely places to consider if the enemy team hard charges through this gap. Generally, what's going to happen as the enemy team pushes through, like in a random battle, for example, if they all decide to lemming through here, you can set up back here if you have a destroyer spotting for you out here somewhere. The enemy team usually goes like this. They usually get cut through this gap, or they'll cut like this. They usually won't clear this island. And if this can make a really good holding spot, because you can lob shots over onto their broadsides as they're trying to push into here like this. And same from the other side. If the enemy team comes in here like this, this island can work very well to get cross shots in. You just need a destroyer spotting you from out here or here, like that kind of thing. The DD doesn't have to do much but spot. On to the next radar rock. You can barely radar B from these islands. Barely, barely, barely. I think it has to be the Russian cruisers. And again, you can see the southern spawn getting a better rock than the northern spawn. But this one's still decent, and putting a radar here can help deter B. I'll get into why I dislike this map later. It mainly has to do with Epicenter, but that's a whole nother topic, is why Epicenter is so bad these days. And I mean, obviously you can put radars here and over here. They're just more vulnerable because they can't really sit in a position where they're safe from all angles. They either have to be open to this angle or they have to be open to this angle. And a team that knows what they're doing is going to keep this lit by, for example, a good way to keep someone lit on those islands is to have a DD just reversing here, because it's too far away from the radar cruiser over here or over here, usually. And they'll just reverse in here, keep this lit, and then your entire team can just shoot him and kill him. And it's same from the other side as well. Usually you'll find them sitting on this island here like that, or this island here like that. And you just have a DD here spotting, you know. Most radar cruisers, especially at higher tiers, you can spot without getting radared. And yeah, you can farm them out that way pretty easily. A strong position here for something like a Z52 is being able to hydro this entire cap from relative safety. It is not 100% safe. You got to be good at dodging, you know. This rock can protect you pretty good here, but you're open to this kind of side here, lobbing shots over. But really, you're only going to get spotted if they radar you, so you have to dodge for like 30 to 40 seconds. And if you get a Z in here, you can pretty much control the B cap from both sides, really. Both sides can control this cap. Again, you're going to have to just watch shots through here, mainly because this rock is so big covering this side. It's a good way to get B. And now for the C cap. There's a ton of little islands in here, and you can fit radar cruisers on a lot of them. But the main ones you're going to see are actually this one up here, and sometimes out here. Usually this isn't going to be as much of a radar cruiser. It's going to be more to block flanking routes, that kind of thing. But the radar is generally going to sit here and here for the C cap. You can't really radar from these rocks here to get the whole thing. So you're going to want to set up a radar cruiser here or here, pretty strong spot for it. You're going to get the whole cap with, I think, a Moskva radar, the Russian 12-kilometer one. Usually you're not going to get it with the Des Moines radar or the American one, which is only 10 kilometers. But that's okay, because you're going to probably put that ship over here, that kind of thing. It's tricky to get these ones out and to keep them spotted because there's just so many little islands here. So you can maneuver them all over the place. A strong island to get to is definitely this one here from the north. You can just see how big this island is, and it covers, you know, an entire radar cruiser here. You just have to know that you're going to be open to all of this. So if your team is able to push these guys out, this is a very strong spot. But again, like I've talked about, these radar cruisers have to watch when they're getting pressured from over here. All right, if you're getting pressured from all the way over here, if you back out too far, you're going to be open to cross shots from a battleship over here. That's kind of all over the place, and something I see a lot of radar cruisers mess up, and that's why I talk about it in every video, is the reversing out when you're pressured by HE. Same with this island here. You know, if you're sitting on this island here, you're relatively safe, and then suddenly they pressure you with HE from over here, you start reversing, and oh no. You're broadside onto a battleship at long range, fair enough, but they can get some pretty good hits on you. It's far better to tank the HE pressure than to eat a Citadel or two from a battleship. Now, destroyers on this map, they have a lot of interesting opportunities, and they mainly are passive opportunities until later game. You need to be careful. You need to be very, very, very careful when playing this as a destroyer. It's very tricky because the enemy team can radar you on most caps. B is the only really exception, but they have radar cruisers here and here. You'll probably spot that out before you go for the B cap. That's the main thing. Destroyers really need to be careful here because there just are so many radar islands close to caps that you want to be spotting things before you really touch the cap. So you want to come out wide as a DD here on the A cap, and that's going to do two things. You're going to know if there's a radar cruiser in these two positions before you touch the cap, and you're also going to know if somebody's pushing up here because you're going to end up spotting them. And that's very important for your team, is for the DD to spot them. And in fact, sometimes you can go so wide to spot them, you can go out here and here, And then you'll spot them the whole way they're coming in here. And then your team has a bunch of shots in from both sides. It's very, 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 very powerful. Getting that early spotting is very important for this map. Just be aware that the enemy DD probably knows you're going to do that, and they'll probably launch torps like this. And you'll have to watch out for that, so make sure you're ready to dodge some torpedoes. But as far as capping the A cap, a good spot is actually to cap from right next to these rocks. I know it means you're a little bit closer to these two radar ships here, but if these two radar ships want to shoot at you and you're backing in like this and like this, they have to expose themselves to get shots. So really, it's only their teammates that are up here that are going to get shots on you as you're reversing in there. It can be good. You have to read the situation. A lot of times people just cap from here because they're farthest away from the radar ship, so you can get out of it as soon as you possibly can. But baiting the enemy radar ship into, walking out here to shoot at you can result in a battleship getting a dev strike on either of these guys. I've seen it happen quite a few times, and oftentimes the radar cruiser, especially in random battles, will do that because they don't trust their teammates to shoot the DD when they spot them. So that can be a very strong way to contest the ACAP. And you'll see you don't want to go too far in here. Really, you just want to reverse like this. Reverse in here like this. And that radar ship doesn't have an angle. It's really only the guys here. And these guys will have maybe one shot through this gap. And by that time, you're already out here and getting around this island into cover. And it's very similar from the other side, quite honestly. Both sides are very, very much the same in that regard from the DD capping. You can do this angle here too, but you're more opened up to the radar cruiser. Always back into these caps though, and make sure you know where the radar ship is. That's very important. If they do have a radar ship here, you probably aren't going to want to take this cap or even try to. At that point, the cap's probably been lost, so you want to go somewhere else. It is possible to do a rush through the middle sometimes, if the enemy team allows it, but just be aware you're very, very committed then, especially if you come through this corner here to try and cap. Let's say you're in a Colbert or a Marceau, something really quick, and you come around this island to cap from here. Well, there's no opportunity for you to turn out when people start shooting at you from here. You're stuck broadside as you're going along here, so you're going to eat a lot of damage and probably die. So that's usually not a good option. Later game, if you're going to set up an ambush on A, let's say the enemy DD is trying to cap it from here, you could set up a few destroyers here, and then maybe a couple over here, maybe some ships out here, and you can set up a nice ambush here. But that all requires the enemy team to not have much presence in the middle. So that's more late game strategies. B, like I talked about, you're going to want to destroyer, if you got a lot of hydro ability, like a Z52, even a daring has a big enough hydro that it covers this island, so an enemy destroyer isn't able to just sit on the island with you to stall it out. That can be a good push. Just be aware that you're going to be a heavy focus target of the enemy team, so you better be ready to dodge and sit right on this island. You can't really maneuver out of it until the radars are down. But capping it, realistically, you're going to want to cap it from these angles here. You're going to want to go out to here and out to here, generally, because usually the radar ship's on this island or this island. This one is a little less common because it's so far away. But even coming into the cap like this and like this, let's say, you're going to be spotting this guy. And if you don't see anybody there, then it can be a really good option to go close. But again, like I'm talking about this all the time. You want to know where the radar ship is before you contest the cap. It's not worth throwing away your ship or half your health when you get surprised by a radar cruiser. If you don't spot a radar ship here or here, it's likely the radar ship for B is on these two islands. And then you want to reposition and back in from really close to the island. Going from here can be all right, but you're just closer to the radar ship needlessly. It all depends on where the radar ship is located, and you're going to want to figure out that information before you cap. Those are big important things for destroyers to do. And again, spotting these guys, you can see you get great spotting in onto these ships from these angles, and then your whole team is able to punish them from over here and over here. And radar ships generally don't last long when they're spotted for a long time because people key in on that and think, even if they're not the best players, people know to focus a radar cruiser out. So especially when they're in a position like this or like this. So you can just sit here and spot and maybe torp at them or torp somebody coming across here if you've got longer range torpedoes. And just doing that spotting role is very important for your team. It's not always all about damage. Now for the C-cap, it's tricky. Generally, you're going to back in here and here. I'll just show you what that looks like in game. It's a very tight cap, I would say. You're very close to the enemy ships, and you're going to be backing in here. And if you get radared, you're going to just be tucking in behind this island or over here. You're going to back in here and tuck in behind the island, either side. That's pretty much the strategy for capping this in a destroyer because these islands are so good. You're going to want to do that. The farthest away from enemies would be here, but you don't have the island cover to quickly hide behind. So that's generally what you're going to want to do. But because there's so many islands, you can actually hide radar ships in very weird places. Generally, you're not going to be able to go up to that one without getting spotted. But here, sometimes they'll even push a radar cruiser up to this island or up to this island or this island. And at that point, you need to just admit that the cap is not going to be under your control at the start and go out wide and spot. So let's say they put a radar cruiser here. Just go spot him from out here. Torp at him, and then your team's going to shoot at him. And then if he does, like we talked about earlier, the mistake of backing up under that HE pressure, you hopefully get a battleship shot coming across. That's kind of the thought process there. I see a lot of DDs just force caps, even though they're going to get radared, and there's a lot of focus fire there ready for them. It's better to wait it out, let the enemy team get the cap, and then spot their key ships that are holding this cap, and hopefully kill them, and then you can go in for the cap. It's not worth throwing your life and your HP away at the start of the game for a capture zone. It's way more valuable to keep your health and keep the ability to contest caps and destroyers late game. It's very, very valuable to your team. Random battles, clan battles, whatever, ranked, everything. Now, the last thing is battleships. There's not a lot of good pushing routes here, honestly, because look at all these islands for cruisers to hide behind and lob shells at you. Destroyers are going to be spotting all through these islands, and it's going to be really tricky to get a push done on C-cap. I have made plays for this island in particular here, where you push up to this island, you block all of the shots from everybody over here, along this angle here, and then you focus the guys over here. You can make that work, same from the other side. I've done this island here, and I've done this island here, and it can work to do that. It takes a lot of the enemy focus. In fact, in my upcoming Marco Polo full review, I'll put a clip of me being here in my Marco Polo, and you'll see it really holds the enemy team back because they have to deal with you. But you got to be smart about playing around these islands. It's tricky, and you have to focus out the people that can shoot at you and using the islands to block people. But full-on pushing this cap generally isn't going to work all that well for you just because of how many torpedo lines there are, ambush opportunities, cruisers spamming behind islands, all that stuff. Not going to work. Same with middle, just too far, too open, too many. These islands are very easy to spam over. And really, if you're pushing mid in a battleship, you're literally open for the entire enemy team to push you. So, or not push you, to focus you. If you try and push your battleship here or here, right? Well, you're going to get shot at from all these angles because everybody these days, when they see a battleship pushing in, they're like, oh, that's some free experience. Free damage, free experience. They want to farm it out as quickly as possible. So pushing mid is generally not a good option. Now, that leaves just the A cap. And A pushes can work. In videos past, you've probably seen me make really aggressive pushes around this corner here or this corner here. And then your goal is to get up to the opposite island. So if you're pushing from this side, your goal is to get up to this island. This side, your goal is to get up to this island. And then from there, you're focusing out enemy ships that are left over here and over here. So what that does is you bring your battleship up here, you bring your battleship up here, you're blocking the entire enemy team from shooting at you from all these angles, and they can only shoot you from here. That's a relatively close range fight, and one that a battleship can win if it's got sufficient support. Same with over here. You can see how that blocks the enemy sight lines. That's the main thing about this entire map is there's a lot of open sight lines. So to push is really hard because there's very few places where you can be safe from the enemy team focusing you out as a battleship. So generally what you're doing is you're generally playing pretty far back, focusing out the radar cruisers, and you're generally going to be looking for those cross shots as well because they are so powerful, right? You know, hypothetically, your battleships are like this. So you want to focus out this island? Well, you put a battleship out here, and you put a battleship here, and you get these amazing cross shots in here like this and like this. And this radar cruiser is basically done for eventually. Eventually, they'll get a good shot in. But pushing on this map is not that amazing for battleships at all. It's just too open in the middle. It's too it's too open here for the most part. It's really hard to cross this point here without getting cross shot, torped, farmed out from a guy back here. Like I talked about, these islands are incredibly strong when a battleship pushes through here. It's not really a pushing map for a battleship. That's what I'm trying to say. Now, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the different positions. Basically it. As a destroyer, really quick about spotting. I know I talked about this a little bit earlier. As long as you're not hiding behind one of these little islands here, or hiding behind this island, or hiding behind these islands, you're pretty much going to be spotting for your team. It's almost impossible to not spot on this map, given how it's set up. So, realistically, though, you're going to be looking to spot enemy pushes, spot enemy radar ships, all that kind of stuff, without getting too aggressive. That's the main thing. Now, in our last couple minutes here, I want to talk about Epicenter on this map. I'm sure you've gotten that a lot, where Epicenter is basically 3 rings right in here. And the main problem with Epicenter is you're gonna have the unfortunate effect where your DDs die, and there's nothing you can do about it. You just lose. So Epicenter is going to look like that with 3 rings. Ignore the A and the C cap here for now. The main issue I have with Epicenter these days is it's impossible to stall all 3 caps, all 3 circles from the center one. The reason Epicenter was okay back in the day is you could stall all 3 caps from the middle. So if it was late game and the enemy team was winning on caps, you had to make a push, and you could make a push into the middle, stall the middle cap, stall the outside 2 rings as well, and you could fight for that win. Now they've changed it, so you only stall the capture zone you're in, meaning it's impossible unless you have 3 very well coordinated teammates to stall all 3 late game and make that final push in. And so it makes destroyers so incredibly strong when they control the ability to stall this middle cap and this the 2 outside caps easier. But really, it's this middle one. And the main problem with Epicenter on this map in particular, there's nowhere for bigger ships to stall this middle cap from. It's just too open. You try and make a play for it, you die because the enemy team is just going to be ready for it. If your destroyers lose the fight at the very beginning, the game is basically over because they're going to be holding this middle cap, which ticks very quickly. The middle cap is the most important one. And then when you try and push in with your big ship to stall it, the enemy DD is going to be spotting you and torping you, all that good stuff. And with that spotting, you're going to get just shot at by the entire enemy team who's camping the back. So whoever wins that initial DD fight wins the game. I would say 95% of the time. It's kind of ridiculous because of a couple reasons. One is the no good islands to contest the cap from, no good routes to get into, like, this middle island. You can't even get to it as a battleship, really. And if you do, it's really easy for enemies to just lob over it because a battleship is so big. Radar cruiser, big cruiser as well. You can't really get to it. It's all about that initial DD fight. Even this island, using this island to stall from, not good because you're spotted and everybody can shoot at you from over here or over here, depending on the side you take. It's a really, really bad game mode that is so reliant on the destroyers that it becomes unfun. And it basically becomes an unwinnable game within the first 3 to 4 minutes of the game happening. That initial destroyer trade determines who wins Epicenter these days. On Tears of the Desert, I didn't talk about as much because there was a big island in the middle of Tears of the Desert where you could stall that one or push to as a bigger ship. And there were actually options to push to it with island cover, all that stuff. But this map is the worst one because it's so open, and this middle cap is so specialized in destroyer contest that there's no way to win the game once your DDs die. And that's down to the openness, but also I don't know why they changed Epicenter to not stalling all 3 zones when you're in the middle zone. That made such a massive difference for brawling. Epicenter seemed to be the game mode where you were forced to push in. It was the brawling game mode. It was the ultimate, like, you have to go in and push. You're forced to. And now it isn't, because you go in and push to this middle zone, and suddenly you still lose because the enemy team controls the 2 outer caps later on in the game. I don't like new Epicenter. And especially on this map, it's the worst. Every time I see this, I basically want to exit out of the game because it's all up to who wins the destroyer fight at the beginning. That's who wins the game. And I don't like games that are decided that quickly. So yeah, that's the thoughts on my thoughts on this. What is it? Northern Waters. Yeah, Northern Waters. So that's my thoughts on it. It's not a great map. I personally believe that most of the new maps Wargaming's put in the last couple years have been far worse than their original maps. So yeah, I hope they're going to do a little bit better, thinking out game modes like Epicenter, thinking about island positions, all that stuff to allow for more interesting fights, instead of fights where everybody just sits the back line and then snipes at one another, and then eventually one team wins. Yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.